The controversy surrounding the late third quarter penalty in the Rams-Panthers playoff game is another reminder of the uncomfortable tension that now exists between player safety, rule enforcement, and the spirit of NFL football. What should have been a routine physical play in a high-stakes postseason environment instead became a flashpoint that dominated fan reaction and shifted the emotional temperature of the game. The play itself unfolded quickly, as most sideline throws do. Matthew Stafford delivered a pass toward the boundary for Davante Adams, a receiver known for his toughness, body control, and willingness to absorb contact in traffic. Two Carolina defenders closed rapidly, converging at the catch point just as Adams elevated. One defender made significant contact as Adams was coming down, dislodging the ball and producing what looked in real time like a hard but standard collision for playoff football. Flags flew almost immediately. The ruling, unnecessary roughness on the defense. Within seconds, the reaction across social media was explosive. Fans from all corners, Rams supporters, Panthers fans, and neutral viewers voiced frustration not only with the call itself, but with what it represented. To many, it felt like yet another example of referees inserting themselves into a playoff game by enforcing a rule without regard for context, timing, or realism. What made the call especially controversial was the nature of the hit. The defender did not launch. He did not leave his feet. There was no obvious helmet-to-helmet strike initiated with malice or recklessness. Instead, it appeared to be a bang-bang play, one where the receiver elevated and the defender arrived at full speed, both acting within fractions of a second. Adams notably had to leave the field briefly for evaluation, which likely influenced the optics of the call. Anytime a star player enters the medical tent after a hit, officials are under increased scrutiny, both internally and externally. The league's emphasis on safety means that visible consequences often validate flags after the fact, even if the play itself exists in a gray area. That gray area is exactly where fans' frustration lives. Many viewers argued that defenders are being placed in an impossible position. Defensive backs are trained to break on the ball aggressively, especially on sideline routes, where space is limited and timing is critical. When a quarterback throws a pass into traffic, what fans often call a hospital ball, the receiver and defender are placed on a collision course by design. The defender has milliseconds to react, asking him to lower his strike zone, avoid the helmet, avoid the shoulders, avoid excessive force, and still make a legal football play. Borders on unrealistic. Several fans pointed out that Adams was airborne, changing his body angle as the defender arrived. Once a receiver leaves the ground, the defender's margin for error shrinks dramatically. The defender cannot teleport. He cannot stop his momentum. Physics takes over. Helmet contact, even incidental, becomes almost unavoidable. That reality fuels the growing perception that the league has tilted too far toward offense, particularly in postseason games where physicality has historically defined the product. Playoff football has always been faster, more violent, and more emotionally charged. Fans tune in expecting that difference. When flags interrupt that rhythm, it feels jarring. The timing of the call only amplified the outrage. Coming late in the third quarter of a tightly contested playoff game, the penalty extended a Rams drive that stalled moments later, but still resulted in points. Even a field goal in that situation carries weight. In the playoffs, 3 points can change everything: play calling, urgency, and psychological momentum. That's where officiating controversies hurt the most. It's not just about the yardage. It's about the sense that outcomes are being nudged by interpretations rather than decided purely by execution. To be clear, the referees did not invent the rule. The NFL's unnecessary roughness and defenseless receiver protections are written broadly on purpose. They give officials discretion, allowing them to penalize hits deemed forcible or unnecessary, especially when a receiver is in a vulnerable posture. Adams, reaching for a sideline pass with defenders converging, fits that definition under the rulebook. The problem is not legality. The problem is consistency and expectation. Fans see similar hits go unflagged in other games, other quarters, or even earlier in the same contest. When enforcement varies, trust erodes. When trust erodes, every close call becomes evidence of bias, softness, or incompetence, fair or not. Another layer to the backlash is the belief that quarterbacks escape accountability. Many fans argued that Stafford deserves scrutiny for throwing a dangerous pass into tight coverage. While quarterbacks are praised for toughness and anticipation, defenders are punished for the inevitable collisions those throws create. That imbalance has existed for years, but moments like this bring it to the surface. There is also the playoff context. Fans accept flags in September that they reject in January. The standard has always been different, even if the rulebook says otherwise. Officials are expected, rightly or wrongly, to let them play when the stakes are highest. When that expectation is violated, outrage follows. This is hardly a new phenomenon. Every postseason features at least one moment where officiating dominates headlines. From questionable pass interference calls to roughing the passer penalties to obscure rule applications, controversy is baked into the modern NFL viewing experience. What's changed is the speed and volume of reaction. Social media ensures that every call is dissected instantly, from multiple angles by millions of viewers who feel empowered to weigh in. Clips loop endlessly. Opinions harden. Narratives form before officials even finish explaining their ruling. In this case, the referee's explanation did little to calm the storm. To fans, explanations often sound procedural rather than persuasive. By rule has become one of the least satisfying phrases in sports, especially when the rule itself feels disconnected from common sense. From the league's perspective, the emphasis on safety is non-negotiable. The NFL has invested too much financially and reputationally in reducing head injuries to relax enforcement in marquee moments. Officials are instructed to err on the side of protection, even if it disrupts flow or angers fans. That creates a fundamental conflict. The league wants playoff intensity without playoff violence. Fans want playoff violence without playoff penalties. Both sides believe they're protecting the integrity of the game. Davante Adams returning to the game further complicated perception. Once a player comes back, fans often retroactively judge the hit as not that bad, even though injury risk is not always immediately visible. The sight of Adams lining up again made the flag feel excessive in hindsight, regardless of medical reality. Ultimately, the penalty did not decide the game on its own. Football games are too complex for that simplification, but it shaped the emotional narrative, which in many ways matters just as much. Fans walked away talking about referees instead of routes, coverages, or coaching adjustments. That is always a loss for the sport. The Rams-Panthers matchup will be remembered for its drama, its swings, and its tension, but also for another reminder that in today's NFL, the rulebook is often the most powerful player on the field. And as long as that remains true, controversy will continue to feel as inevitable as the national anthem that starts every playoff game.